Hello friends, welcome to the Biological Life Sciences channel. Today we are going to see cloning vectors. Under the cloning vectors heading, we are going to see cloning vectors that are prepared from bacteria. We know that for cloning experiment to be done, we have to first of all isolate desired DNA. That can be gene or fragment of DNA. So this fragment of DNA has to be placed into an host organism. For example, if I want to clone a particular DNA into a certain organism or certain plant, then I have to transfer it into that host using a vector, without which it is not possible. So we require a vector to transfer the desired gene of interest into the host. So this vector is very important in cloning experiments. So we are going to see the cloning vectors, what are its types, what are the different properties of cloning vector, and we are going to see bacterial vector, that is plasmid vector, in this, and how the cloning can be done. So let's begin. First of all, the cloning vector in bacteria is requiring a vector in which a different size of DNA fragments can be inserted. So the vector in which foreign DNA has been inserted is called recombinant vector, as the foreign DNA particle is introduced into this, and this vector then is allowed to transfer into the host cell, in which it gets incorporated and it will transfer our gene of interest, or it will express our gene of interest into the host cell. So let's see what are the different properties of vector that are desired for a successful cloning experiment. First property is presence of ORIC site or origin of replication. That is, our vector must have a ORIC site, origin of replication, using which it will get replicated into the host cell, and it should be autonomously replicating. Irrespective of the chromosomal DNA. So as the chromosomal DNA is replicating itself, the plasmid DNA should also replicate itself, or the vector whichever we are using. In case of bacteria, it will be plasmid. It should be able to replicate itself in the vector successfully. The next property that a vector should have is multiple cloning site. That is, multiple cloning sites means, suppose this is the vector. So if I want to add my fragment of interest at this position, so there should be presence of a restriction enzyme site at this position, so that I can incorporate my DNA of interest into this site. This will be cut like this, and my DNA of interest will be added into this region, and that will be ligated here. So it should have multiple cloning site. Means what? Different restriction enzymes sites should be present all over the vector, and which will help us to add the foreign DNA into the vector. So it should have multiple cloning sites. The next important feature that a vector should have is the presence of selectable marker gene. Selectable marker gene. Selectable marker means whatever the gene we have inserted into the host, whether that gene is transferred into the host cell or it has expressed into that host cell, that can be checked by using selectable marker gene. So, these genes are such as ampicillin resistance, kanamycin resistance, or tetracycline resistance genes, etc. So such kind of genes are called selectable marker genes. For example, if this gene is present in our plasmid and we transfer this plasmid along with the desired material or desired DNA into the host, what will happen? Due to the presence of this gene, our bacteria will become resistant to the ampicillin. If kanamycin resistance gene is there, our bacteria will become resistant to kanamycin. If tetracycline resistance gene is there, our bacteria will be resistant to tetracycline. So if such kind of genes are there, it is very easy to differentiate between the transferred bacteria or transformed bacteria from other wild type bacteria. So this helps in selectively isolating our cell of interest in which the gene, the vector has moved along with our gene of interest. Okay, so these are the different properties that a vector should have, and it should have specific control mechanism. Like for example, if my gene of interest is this, okay, so it should have a control system also, like promoter, its terminator, so that our gene of interest should be expressed properly into the host cell. So fourth point that a vector should have is the control element. Control elements. The control elements can be promoter, operator, or terminator. So these are the sequence which are present prior to the gene or after the gene. So these sequences are also important that helps in expression of gene. So these were the different properties of vector, that is desired properties of vector that a vector should have in order to go for a successful cloning experiment. Now let's see what are the different bacterial vectors. The major vector that a bacteria possesses is the plasmid vector. So we are going to see two important plasmid. Before we see the two plasmid vectors, let's see what are the properties of plasmid vectors that it should have to successfully integrate into the cell. So let's see properties that plasmid vector should have. So first, it should be easily isolated, intact. Means when we have introduced this plasmid vector into the bacterial cell, then we should be able to easily isolate it, and that too intact, means in its natural form, and it should not be distorted. So first property is that plasmid should have been easily isolatable. Second property is it should not alter the properties upon introduction of foreign DNA. Means if a foreign DNA of interest or a gene is introduced into the plasmid, the innate properties of the plasmid, that is to replicate autonomously plus having multiple cloning sites, should not be altered by the entry of foreign DNA into that. And the next third property is it can be reusable. Reusable, or it can be reintroduced into the different cells. Means once the cloning experiment is done, that bacteria has been transferred into that plasmid has been transferred into the bacteria, that plasmid should be re-isolated from that bacteria into its intact form, and again this plasmid can be reintroduced into another bacteria for getting that same feature. So it should be reused, or its quality should not be degraded over time. Okay, so let's see next property, that it should not be available freely in nature. Means it should be available in bacterial cell only, and in the nature it should not be available in the free intact form, otherwise it can cause various other problems, environmental problems also. Okay, the next property that a plasmid vector should have is it is having multiple cloning sites. So there should be multiple cloning sites of choice. means what? We can use variety of restriction enzyme of choice of restriction enzymes, so that it helps in cloning experiments, because the availability of restriction enzyme also here is in question, because the plasmid should have the restrictive sites of different restriction enzymes, and that same restriction enzyme then can also be used to isolate the DNA fragment from the bacteria, which is the source. So it should be having MCS of choice, and it should have next properties, it should have the selectable markers. It should have a selectable markers that are easy to differentiate. Means we can easily able to do, we should be able to differentiate between the two types of cell. The one which is transformed and another which is non-transformed cells. So these were the different properties of plasmid vector that we should have in order to use that plasmid as a vector successfully. Let's see now the plasmids which we are going to study in this video, that is plasmid PBr322 and plasmid PUC19. The PBr322 and PUC19 belongs to the two families of plasmids, that is PBr family and PUC18 family. So there is a proper way of writing the plasmid. Let's see the first plasmid, that is PBr322. So here P stands for plasmid. Here B and R stands for the two scientists which discovered this, that is Bolivar and Rodriguez. Okay, and the 322 is the number of plasmid in the family. So similarly, this naming is done like this. Similarly, for the next plasmid that we are going to see, that is PUC18 plasmid. This is the plasmid discovered by UC, that is University of California, and it's the 18th plasmid of the family. So these are the various ways of naming the plasmid, and this is standard for different plasmids. Okay, so let's see the PBr322 plasmid first. So it's a first artificial plasmid. To be developed. First artificial plasmid. The replication system or the ORIC site in this plasmid is taken from COL-E1 system. COL-E1 replication system, that is isolated from E. coli. So E. coli's COL-E1 system is used here for replication purpose. There are different genes here, that is selectable markers. There is the presence of ampicillin resistance gene. There is the presence of tetracycline resistance gene in this. And there is a ORIC site that is isolated from COL-E1 replication system of E. coli. And there is a presence of multiple cloning sites for different restriction enzymes, and these sites are present in ampicillin gene also, it is present in tetracycline gene also, it is present in ORIC gene also. The size of this PBr322 is 4.362 kb, that is the size, and it can use for cloning less than 10 kb of fragment of interest. We know that 1 kb of DNA is equals to 1000 base pairs, and this 1000 base pairs corresponds to 0.66 mega dalton of atomic weight. So this is the approximate conversion that we'll use here while isolating the plasmid in agarose gel electrophoresis. So maximum fragment that can be cloned here is 10 kb. So let's see what is the so normally here it is having 15 to 20 copies per cell, means this plasmid is having this much copies per cell, but this can be increased by using an by treatment of an antibiotic, that is chloramphenicol. This is an antibiotic. What is the role of this antibiotic? This antibiotic selectively restricts the chromosomal replication. Chromosomal DNA replication. It restricts the chromosomal DNA replication. So what happens when the chromosomal DNA is not replicating? There is a presence of co-Levin system in this plasmid, so this plasmid replicates itself even if the chromosomal DNA is not replicating. So what will happen? The plasmid number inside a single cell will be increasing, and it can increase up to 1000 copies per cell. So this chloramphenicol antibiotic is used in increasing the number of plasmid or amount of plasmid present in per cell. So in turn, when you are isolating the plasmid, you will get a good yield of this plasmid. So let us see the structure or the diagram of PBr 322. There is a presence of ampicillin resistant gene and tetracycline resistant gene in this plasmid, and there is the presence of ORIC site. This is the ORIC site that is taken from E. coli co-Levin replication system. This is ampicillin resistance gene. This is tetracycline resistance gene. There is a presence of various restriction enzyme sites all over the plasmid. In this diagram, I am mentioning few important restriction enzyme sites that are readily used for cloning experiments. That is EcoR1, CL11, HIND3, BAMH1, SAL1, BGL1, ECO R2, then BAL1, PVU second, ECO R1, ECO R2, BGL1, PVU1, HIND1. Okay, so this is the plasmid PBr 322, which is having a 4.362 kb of length. Okay, so here you can see there is a presence of multiple these are called multiple cloning sites at a same gene. Means what? In tetracycline gene there are different restriction enzyme sites, and in ampicillin also there are different restriction enzyme sites. There are many more also, but it is not mentioned here. So if you want to insert a fragment or a gene in this tetracycline, what will happen? The gene will be disrupted. Yes, it will be like this. Yes, so this gene will be disrupted, that is tetracycline gene is going to be disrupted. So what will happen? The bacteria in which we are going to transfer this plasmid will not have a tetracycline resistance, and our fragment of interest will be added into this position and we will ligate it, and the ampicillin resistance gene here is intact. So the bacteria in which our plasmid is added along with the fragment of interest will be able to grow on the ampicillin resistance gene, ampicillin containing plate. Why? Because there is an ampicillin resistant gene here, but it will not be able to grow on the tetracycline resistant gene, plate. So what will happen? The bacteria which we are not able to grow on tetracycline resistant plate can be isolated using replica plate. Means this is a way of isolating the transformant here or the recombinant here. If our fragment of interest that we have added in tetracycline resistant gene is expressing, it is recombinant. If it is not expressing, it is transformed. Means what? Our fragment is just transformed in that bacteria. Okay, so thereby you can use this PBr 322 plasmid for cloning. Now let us see the next plasmid vector, that is POC18 plasmid vector, that is from the family Plasmid University of California. This plasmid is a plasmid which can clone 2.69 kb of its size is 2.69 kb and it can clone a fragment less than 10 kb. Okay, so this plasmid is having various genes such as ORIC, that is for origin of replication, taken from COL-E1 replication system of E. coli. There is a presence of selectable marker genes here such as LAGZ that codes for enzyme beta galactosidase, then LAC-I that codes for repressor, and there is a presence of ampicillin resistance gene. Okay, so these are the different markers that are used here for selection. This plasmid helps in selection on the basis of the principle of blue-white screening. So as we know now let's see the structure of PUC18 plasmid. You can see the structure of PUC18 plasmid here. There is a presence of ampicillin resistance gene. There is a presence of ORIC site, that is from COL-E1 replication system of E. coli. There is a presence of LAGZ gene along with its operator and promoter, and there is a presence of LAC-I gene that codes for LAC repressor. So what will happen, as the transformation efficiency is very low, this plasmid will enter the bacterial cell, and if this plasmid is transformed into the bacterial cell, what will happen? This LAC repressor, that is LAC-I gene present here, will be synthesizing the repressor, okay, and it will go and bind to this position. Since the LAGZ gene present here will be synthesized, in that case, what will happen? The blue colored colonies will be produced as there is a presence of X-gal as a substrate in the medium. IPTG will be used here as an inducer. Okay, so IPTG cannot be used as a substrate and X-gal cannot be used as an inducer. So when the beta galactosidase enzyme degrades the X-gal substrate, there is a blue colored colony that bacteria forms. So the blue colored colony here will be transformed one. Okay, so now if in this LAGZ gene our fragment of interest is added into this plasmid, and then this plasmid is transformed into the bacteria, then what will happen? The LAGZ gene present here will be disrupted. Okay, so now the functional LAGZ gene will not be going to functional beta galactosidase enzyme will not be going to be formed, as the gene is disrupted by addition of a foreign DNA. Okay, so then what will happen? This X-gal substrate for the bacteria will not be utilized by the beta galactosidase enzyme, as it is not present there, or the gene is disrupted. So the bacterial colony is going to be giving us white color, and therefore these white colored colony will be recombinant colonies. Hence, on the basis of blue-white screening, we can screen for the recombinant one, or we can screen for the transformed one in which the plasmid is present in the bacteria. Okay, so I hope you have understood the functioning and the structure of PUC18 plasmid. If you like the video, please press like button, share, subscribe and comment, and press the bell icon for the further videos. Thank you so much.